I was halfway through a bag of pita chips, procrastinating like it was an Olympic sport, when I fell into the weirdest corner of the internet. You know how it goes. You start out looking up something normal like, how do dams even work? And somehow end up reading about people in the 1950s trying to dig harbors with nuclear bombs. Like, not metaphorical bombs, actual nuclear devices. I ended up finding out about U.S. program from the 1950s known as Project Plowshare. And the vibe was very, what if we used our biggest, scariest invention to do wholesome construction? It's named after that Bible line about beating swords into plowshares, which is honestly a great rebrand. Don't worry, it's peaceful nukes. But the more I read, the more it felt like someone said, we have this enormous hammer, what if everything was a nail? And then they started pointing to mountains. So, picture the late 1950s and 60s. The US is deep in the Cold War, testing nukes in the desert like it's a seasonal Starbucks drink, this year's Nevada edition. Scientists and military people are like, what if we used this for peaceful things? Big holes, super canals, underground storage. We could literally move the Earth. On paper, it sounds kind of awesome, using the most powerful tech humans had ever built to reshape geography. Like Minecraft, but with Fallout. One of the wildest ideas, and I am not making this up, was to carve out a second Panama Canal using nuclear blasts. Imagine the brochure, cruise through our brand new, slightly radioactive waterway. They also wanted to create new harbors, dig mines, and even stimulate natural gas. They actually did some of this, like the Project Sedan test in 1962, where they detonated a nuke underground in Nevada and made a giant crater that you can still see. It's huge. It looks like the Earth got punched. Everyone was like, cool crater. But also, why does the Geiger counter sound like an EDM track? Here's the part that hit me, though. These people really thought they were building the future. That this was modernity. That nuclear tech was the key to everything. Big energy. Big nation. Big explosions. If it's not glowing, it's not going. And yet, while I was reading that, another tab I had open was something totally different. Arcosanti, Arizona. If Project Plowshare's agenda is, let's blast the Earth to make it useful, Arcosanti's agenda is, let's design the way we live so we don't have to blast anything. Two totally different vibes. Same century. Same country. Same, we can build a better future energy. But where Plowshare was like, boom, hole, Arcosanti was like, maybe architecture could be kinder. So let me rewind. Arcosanti is this experimental town in the Arizona desert, started by an Italian architect named Paolo Soleri in the late 1960s/early 70s. Soleri was asking this very millennial-sounding question decades early. Why are cities so spread out and wasteful? He coined this term, arcology, basically architecture plus ecology, which basically means a city that lives lightly, built in a way that respects the environment instead of steamrolling it. Instead of suburb sprawl where you burn gas to go buy milk, arcology tries to put everything closer together. Work, art, housing, even farming. Neat. Dense. Intentional. When I saw pictures of Arcosanti, I was like, oh, this is artsy sci-fi monastery energy. Curved concrete apses, bronze bells, people building their own living space in the desert sun. It looked like something out of a 70s utopian film where everyone plays flutes and makes pottery. But the more I read, the more I realized, this was a serious attempt to ask, can we build cities differently? Which is when my brain did the Spider-Man pointing meme. Both Project Plowshare and Arcosanti were future projects. Just opposite kinds. Plowshare on one side, let's force nature to obey us with tech. Arcosanti on the other, let's design ourselves so we don't have to force nature at all. Two ways of saying, the world could be better. Two very different levels of subtlety. And here's where I enter the story, because I started wondering, if I was a teen back then, which future would I have believed in? The shiny one with nuclear-powered earth movers? Or the slow, weird, build-it-yourself desert commune? I imagine myself as me now, but time-traveled, sitting in some 1969 high school library. On one table is a magazine with cheerful diagrams of peaceful nuclear excavation, with little clouds and arrows pointing to New Harbor. On the other table is a pamphlet from this Italian architect in Arizona saying, "Come join us and help build a prototype city that doesn't wreck the planet." I know what 12-year-old me would have picked: the nukes. It's dramatic. It's power. It says, we can do anything. Teen brains love overkill. You dug your basement with a shovel? Ha, loser. I dug mine with fission. Now 27-year-old me, the one who started to notice things like, why are summers hotter? And why does the highway make everything ugly? That me would have looked twice at Arcasanti. Because Arcasanti isn't loud, but it's possible. You don't need to be the Pentagon to do it. You need people, patience, and concrete. It's a future you can actually help build, not just watch from behind a fence while someone detonates something. And that's kind of the twist. Plowshare was mega engineering for spectators. Arcasanti was small giant architecture for participants. So here I was, doom-scrolling in real life, trying to learn something new like my education-obsessed mother beat me to do, but then getting hit with a question I wasn't expecting. What kind of future do I actually want? Not the abstract, flying cars, or robot butlers, but the material, dusty, where do we live kind. The point of Project Plowshare is basically, the future is something we blast into existence. And Arcasanti would say, the future is something we build together, slowly. One smashes. One shapes. One trusts the bomb. One trusts the community. One needs a test site. One needs volunteers. And the funniest part? In the long run, the quieter one lasted. Because Project Plowshare kinda fizzled. Turns out people weren't super jazzed about radioactive dirt getting blown into the atmosphere just so we could have a slightly better harbor. Environmental concerns grew. Public patience shrank. The math didn't math. Like, yeah, we can use a nuke to dig, just like you can use a chainsaw to butter your toast. But should you? Not unless you like crunchy uranium toast. By the 1970s, the glowing future looked less cute. The environmental movement grew, nukes fell out of fashion for landscaping, and the idea of reshaping the Earth with bombs started to feel like exactly the kind of thing future historians would roast us for. So Plowshare became one of those, remember when we thought that was a good idea? Chapters. Arcasanti, though, still there. Still in Arizona. Still making bells. Still giving tours. Still serving as a physical reminder that we can test big urban ideas without nuking a canyon first. That's the part that hit me hardest. Sometimes the world-changing thing isn't the loud option, it's the one that just keeps existing. Arcasanti isn't a 10 million person ecology. It never reached the scale Solari dreamed of. But it's proof of concept. It's the science fair prototype of a different city. It says, see? We can live closer together, use less land, make beauty part of the plan. That's valuable. That's low-key legendary. And if you look at the 21st century problems, climate change, sprawl, resource use, the Arcasanti mindset aged way better than the let's blast it mindset. Compact, efficient, walkable, integrated with nature, is basically every urbanist TikTok now. Solari was out there in the desert decades ago being like, hey, we should do this. The man was a step early. Meanwhile, let's solve it with nuclear explosions talk is definitely not trending outside of Israel-Iran tension. I started thinking about how adults in different eras try to sell you the future. In one era it's atomic energy will make everything cheap. In another it's move to the suburbs and get a car. In another it's smart cities with sensors. And as a Eugene, you're stuck trying to figure out which of these futures is actually livable and which ones are just power fantasies. Project Plowshare, to me, was a power fantasy. Like, yeah, imagine saying, we moved a mountain. That's domination. That's empire energy. That's, we're so advanced we edit the planet. Arcasanti was more like, we changed ourselves. That's quieter. That's growth, not domination. And honestly, changing yourself is harder. Anyone can hit. Boom. And it's like, okay, now what? But not everyone can live in a place where you share space, walk more, consume less, and make art. That requires humility. It's not as cinematic. No mushroom cloud. No crater. Just better habits. Cue catchphrase, real futurism is self-control with good lighting. If your utopia needs a blast radius, it's not a utopia, it's a hazard zone. We must come to realize that big future energy isn't louder, it's smarter. Write that on a hoodie, I dare you. Here's another angle I noticed. Both Plowshare and Arcasanti were obsessed with scale. Plowshare said, we can do projects so big normal tools can't handle it. Arcasanti said, we can make a town so compact normal cities can't match it. Both were reacting to the same mid-century problem. Humans were getting big. Bigger populations, bigger industries, bigger footprints. The question was, how do we match that? Do we scale up force or scale up design? Plowshare tried force. Arcasanti tried design. And design always wins long-term, because you can iterate design. You can teach it. You can copy it. A nuclear dug harbor? That's a single event. A well-designed, dense, climate-friendly community? That's a template. Templates are future-proof. Explosions are not. So what can we learn from these utopia projects? Not every future ages well. Just because something sounds advanced, nuclear excavation, doesn't mean it's wise. Sometimes the weird desert art commune is actually the forward-thinking one. Power isn't just about what you can do to the planet. It's about what you can convince people to live like. Arcasanti managed to get people to move, work, and build in a new way. That's social power. The best ideas are the ones that reduce harm, not just increase capability. Plowshare increased capability. Arcasanti reduced harm. Guess which one fits 2025 vibes? You don't have to choose chaos or boredom. Arcasanti proves you can make sustainable living look cool. Curved buildings, bells, desert sunsets. That's not give up everything and cry over recycling. That's live in a sci-fi monastery with good acoustics. My generation's job might be choosing which old futures to keep. We inherited a bunch of 20th century dreams. Cars everywhere, suburbs forever, infinite energy, giant dams, nuclear optimism. Some of them are duds. Some of them still slap. We look and see which ones we have to filter. So now, when I see an idea that's all force and no humility, I side-eye it. Is this Project Plowshare all over again? Like, are we trying to solve a problem with maximum flex instead of better design? Are we about to make a giant crater and then spend 50 years apologizing for it? And when I see an idea that says, what if we lived closer, wasted less, made it beautiful? I think, oh, that's Arcasanti-like. That's the good stuff. That's the I can help kind of future. Because that's the other thing. Arcasanti was participatory. Young people actually went there, learned construction, made bells to help fund it. It was future building you could touch, not just observe. That's huge for young people. We don't want to just hear lectures on the future. We want to lay some bricks in it. And look, I'm not saying Arcasanti was perfect. It didn't become the 5,000-person mega-ecology Solari imagined. People had criticisms of Solari himself. The place is small. It's more of a permanent workshop than a full-blown city. But for me, as a casual fella trying to learn something new, it did something powerful. It expanded the menu. Before, the options looked like suburbs, skyscraper cities, or apocalypse. Now I have a fourth option: experimental micro-cities in the desert that try to respect the earth. And learning about Project Plowshare right before that made the contrast way too obvious. One future says, change the planet to match us. The other says, change us to match the planet. Guess which one we can afford in the 21st century. So yeah, that's the story of how I just some guy eating pita chips and curiosity, discovering that the US once tried to do landscaping with nuclear weapons and that an Italian architect in Arizona quietly built a counterproposal, and realizing that if I'm going to pick a future to stand, I'm going to stand the one that doesn't poison the soil. And maybe that's the whole lesson. The future isn't the loudest idea we had, it's the one we can still live in.